very exuberant, very God-given. You know, God gives us all gifts and talents and personalities. It makes us who we are. So even though as you grow up, you sometimes look at yourself and go, oh, "Why am I like this? How embarrassing!" And as a child, sometimes he would be very emotional, but that's also part of the compassion. And he was always a thinker, so then he'd think all these different avenues and ways, and it still comes back to help. Now that he's an adult, he still uses that to help other people.
Aaron's hobbies. My hobbies are beautiful hobbies. Let me tell you that. So if we're going in the kind of hobbies Aaron has linguistical hobbies. Aaron has emotional hobbies. Aaron has relational hobbies. Aaron's linguistic hobbies consist of the following: Anglo-Saxon, Icelandic, German, French, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, a little bit of Mandarin, some weekends on Cantonese, and then someday I might reflect on Spanish again, and then English.
The Nazarite vow, I get it. I know, like, to set yourself apart. I don't understand the not eating vinegar, though. And nothing from the vine. And even I was rereading through Leviticus or Numbers. I don't know where it's at, but I just recently read it. And I'm like, why is it? Or like even like, as far as not cutting your hair. Yeah, like, so then it's kind of I see it as a conversation starter. Like, why don't you cut your hair? Because then you'll be able to say, oh, well, this is the reason why.
So at that time, when we're talking about a Nazarite vow, we're talking about the vow that's mentioned in number 6. That's saying if you want to take on a vow special unto this kind of relation with God, not necessarily not binding by necessity of people's life, but because of just love, here's a vow: not cutting your not cutting your hair, not eating anything of the vine, and not being around any dead people. I was working as a substitute teacher without hair. And then my hair started growing, and it's the whole identity of what it meant to be a Nazarite also changed within that same aspect. Being in school, like kids perchance would notice me as the guy that had weird accents and big ears. But then when I started growing hair out, they started identifying me as the Jesus sub, or that guy from Revenant that got mauled by a bear, or Abraham Lincoln. But of course the other last two got thrown away, and the only one that got left was Jesus, which has been very interesting, because then the whole nature of the Nazarite vow actually identified itself as what the Nazarite vow was to be done as. So within the culture of the Jews, the Nazarites and the prophets were the two individuals, or the group of individuals that represented the culture. And the Nazarites were a physical representation of the metaphorical values of the people. And it really came out that when I started to have long hair, and people were asking me, like kids were asking me, hey, are you Jesus? Are you God? Why do you have long hair? And it opened up these conversations where almost every week, at least every month, I'd be able to talk about my faith, about who I was living for, what it meant to be able to serve as an unadulterated self, where a lot of the Old Testament values of the laws were to say, we are going to be an unadulterated people. We're specific unto God. We're not going to let all these influences be able to change and to in this beautiful thing that we have with God, this encapsulament. We're not going to let anything else into that. Our relationship is going to be pure, and that's what the representation of the Nazarite is supposed to represent. Is that this not cutting of the hair, is this separation from the mundane, and saying I'm an individual that is unwilling to make a binding of anything else that doesn't represent God. So sacrificing everything else and only investment within the Lord. And so we're talking about the hair. The hair is representation of saying that I am not going to look for anything material to need to identify myself as or to find value in. So like I don't need to change anything about myself to be loved.